Hey everybody, Kevin here from the MSOTD Rocks YouTube channel, and today is day 3 of the 2020 Year-End Awards. Today we're looking at the top 5 albums in rock and metal that disappointed us this year. Before we get started, please follow MSOTD Rocks on places like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You will get a 30-second Song of the Day feature every single day on all of those platforms, and it will be a Song of the Day from rock and metal of a band that you know or a band that's just coming up in the scene today. So you will expand your musical knowledge just off of that. We also post anytime anything comes out on all those platforms so you don't miss anything from the YouTube videos to the podcast. We post different questions so that you don't miss out on that kind of a conversation, and we want to get to know you that way. We also are on Instagram posting IGTV videos every single Tuesday night, and it's a behind the scenes look at what's going on here and what we're working on and what you can expect from us. And we also do our Instagram live streams every single Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. It's an hour you can come talk to us, and really just anything goes. It's a lot of fun, so please join. Please also subscribe to this YouTube channel because not only do we get the rest of the year-end awards that come out over the next couple of days, every single Wednesday we do release a brand new video. And those videos can be anything from album reviews from rock and metal albums that are coming up in the scene, or the big boys and big girls, whoever it might be. We also have the Kevin Figures Out series where I try to figure out if I like a certain band, not that I'm not that well versed in. We also do bands regarding the emerging bands in the scene today and different top 10 lists. So please make sure you're subscribed to catch all those and hit that notification bell or wherever it is now because I have no idea. And you'll be notified every time we release a video. And this is also where the Chord Progression podcast lives. It is our very own podcast 2 times a week where we are interviewing the emerging bands in the scene today. So you get a look at the bands that are coming up and gonna be the biggest bands in the next 10 years in a brand new way that you're never gonna see anywhere else, because we get some wacky conversation about whatever it might be, but music is always at the core. We've had bands like Saul, Thrill the Fight, Kill the Lights, Kingdom Collapse, GFM, No Resolve has been on the podcast. Let's see who else is. Blacktop Mojo has been on the podcast. There have been plenty of bands and others for you to get into as well. You can watch those interviews here on YouTube, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and iHeart. Links in the description below, so like, share, subscribe, comment, send to all your friends, whatever it might be. Enough with that, let's go! So before we get started, this again is the third year, the Most Disappointing Album of the Year award. And this is a look at the albums that really didn't hit us very well in terms of expectations. We were expecting high things from these albums, and we got the lows on them. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that these albums are bad, it just means that they didn't hit expectations. So what kind of albums can you expect? You can expect albums from bands that changed their sound up, and it really didn't necessarily work out well, or they just didn't hit nearly as well as we thought they were going to. I'm going to exclude Like a House on Fire from Asking Alexandra in this one because we have seen that transformation over time, especially after their self-titled in 2017. So this was something that was more expected from them, especially from us, so I'm not going to include them on this list. Or a band could have put out an album that kind of was good, but the expectations on it were fantastic, so it just came in low under those expectations. This is what happened with Pressure by Wage War in last year's video, as they ended up being number 5. We rated it a 6 out of 10, but it just really came in low on expectations after the singles. So take a look at the past winners. In 2018, the album The Outsider by 3 Days Grace ended up winning because after the first single with The Mountain, man, we thought they finally figured it out with Matt Walsh, but then as you went through it, they clearly did not in our opinion. So that's why it was the most disappointing to us. Then in 2019, we picked Who Do You Trust by Papa Roach because after the renaissance of Papa Roach with Face Everything and Rise or Fear in 2015, they continued that in 2017 with Crooked Teeth. But then when they came out with Who Do You Trust in 2019, they were really focusing more on that pop electronic sound they found on Born for Greatness on Crooked Teeth, which I was hoping they weren't going to do, and it just came in and did not work out well at all. So let's get on with it with number 5. Coming at number 5, we have the album Underneath by Code Orange. Now, whoa, hold up. I know you guys are probably smashing those keyboards right now telling, oh, this album was great, what are you talking about? Well, let me explain why it's on the most disappointing list. And when I reviewed it back in March, I did give it a 6 out of 10, and there were some things that I really did enjoy about the album. when I listened to it for the first time through and through without going super analytical on it like I do, I really did enjoy it because it was rather easy to kind of get lost in that sound and that harder sound, and I really did like it. Plus, the mixture between male and female vocals on this album I thought was really well done, because separated, you got the harder male vocal, the softer female vocal, and that contrast really worked out well. And then when they were together and layered over each other, it added so much more of a dynamic to this album that I really did enjoy. But this is going to be what I call that wage war one, where the expectations were high, but when it came out, it just came in a lot lower than those expectations were set for it. So again, it's coming in number 5 on most disappointing because fans were big on this one before it came out, and places like Loudwire and Kerrang were praising this album before the release of it, so the expectations were really high. This is kind of the wage war fallacy once again from 2019. What I wasn't the biggest fan about this album was the lack of that mixture between male and female vocal. While I just praise it for its greatness, the fact they didn't use it all that much really brought this album down, because when they use it, the tracks had so much more dynamics and so much more density to them. There was so much more going on, and it really made those songs sound full. But when it was just the male vocal for a good portion of the time, these songs felt like they ended up running together and bland, and they just lacked that dynamic that the mixture and the contrast between the male and female vocal ended up having. Speaking of somewhat of a monotony, I have to talk about the male vocal once again, because for the most part of it, they went rather heavy and unclean with it. And if you like that heavy and unclean, brutal style, then this album is great for you. I do not have to rat on you on that, because it's all your opinion, it's all your taste, that's what it is. But for me though, I thought the strong focus on it just really didn't work out that well overall, because there was a lot of dynamic potential, like I said, with that mix between male and female vocal. If they'd done some cleaner vocals or some not as brutal, unclean vocals, I thought that dynamic could have really amped up this overall album. So that's one of the other reasons why. The final reason why I wasn't the biggest on this album and why it came under my expectations was there was a slight monotony to the more industrial metalcore sound that they were going with on this album. They focused so heavily on it, and they experimented just a little bit here and there, but again, the so heavy focus on it, it did grow tiresome after a while, and that was when I went to super analytic style. So when I went deep into it, yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. I found it to be rather monotonous and brutal just for the purpose of being that way. And I know a lot of people praise the band for something like this. However, I'm not, because a few songs like Swallowing the Rabbit Hole, In Fear, and Erasure Scan really, in my opinion, were more of the majority than the minority in terms of the dynamics of this album. However, I still think it's pretty good. I just don't think it really came in to those expectations, so that's why it's at number 5. Coming number 4, we have the album Aurora by Breaking Benjamin. This was their acoustic reimagined album that I did give a 6 out of 10 upon listening to it, but I said I was disappointed by it, because when I hear acoustic reimagining, I think you're going to take these songs and redo them so that the pattern is rather similar. However, the style is going to be completely different, and they're going to hit you with a much different emotional style. However, how you get to the point of the song is still going to be the exact same. Very similar to like what Rise Against It with the Ghost Note symphonies, with changing a lot of their punk rock songs to something more hauntingly beautiful. And take the Drug and Me is reimagined by Falling in Reverse, which came out this year. That's a great example of how a reimagining goes right. But when you take a look at what Breaking Benjamin did on Aurora, I really wasn't that big with it. And the reason it was because it's not like they took their songs and didn't really reimagine them. They just kind of made them acoustic in a way. Take a look at a song like Red Cold River, where this was a majority of them where the construction, the pattern, everything was almost the exact same. The only thing that was really changed up was there was an acoustic guitar and there wasn't an electric guitar. The drumming on Red Cold River was almost the exact same. I mean, it hit just as hard, and Ben Brothers' vocals, they weren't as rough, especially in the chorus or the pre-chorus with the Run, Red Cold River. They were a lot more melodic and drawn out, but again, with that heavier drumming, it just felt like this was just not mixed in very well. Then take a look at Tourniquet as well, where they do add more strings in there, and it just really felt like it wasn't the best, because the base of the song was still Tourniquet, so it just didn't feel like it was fully there. And the biggest one I had to pick a bone on was I Will Not Bow, because this one featured Lacey Sturm, and I was super excited for this one because I thought, man, you have a chance to really do something powerful here where you have a female vocal set on something like this, and the compare and contrast between Ben Burnley and Lacey Sturm can be absolutely incredible. But we didn't get that, and the biggest reason was because it was more of a duet with Ben and Lacey singing at the exact same time, and Lacey's vocals are really drawn out by Ben's on that. But when the one time when Lacey went by herself for like one line, it really did work out well. And in a different song like Dance the Devil, where Adam Gontier was featured on it, and he just kind of took control of the song. That really worked out well with an acoustic reimagining style. But if they would have done the same thing with Lazy, I Will Not Bow could have been so much better. I was really disappointed in that. Were there some good moments on Aurora though? Yeah, Dance to the Devil, where Adam Gontier really took charge on the whole entire song. It does give the song a completely different feel with that different vocalist, so I was a big fan of that. Again, wish I Will Not Bow did that with Lacey Sturm. Then take a look at Never Again, where they had this like intro mandolin thing, but then as you go through the verses and you listen to the intro as well, they add the strings in there to go off with the guitars at the same time as well, and now that's kind of reimagining I'm talking about, because you're getting a whole different feel with a different instrument that's bringing the song out to light in a completely different way. Absolutely loved it. And then they included one new song in there called Far Away, and man, the piano ballad sound on this was done incredibly well. And it was comparable, yet slightly different vocals between Ben and Scooter Ward on this one. It created this softer Breaking Benjamin feel with a lot of substance, and it was just a great move overall to do it. However, the fact that they really kind of stuck to the same exact style with a lot of their songs on this and just put an acoustic guitar on there, yeah, I was rather disappointed in that part. So that's why it's number 4. At number 3, I have the album Monomania by the band Word Alive. Now I feel like once I get into 3, 2, and 1, there's going to be less keyboard clacking from you guys. And why was I disappointed with Monomania? One was the biggest thing it was in Telly Smith's vocals, because he stayed incredibly clean throughout the whole entire thing, and what ended up happening was the range of his vocal set compared to a lot of the other Word Alive releases was completely gone. That range was not there. It felt rather stale at times with those vocals. I really wasn't a big fan of it. Take a look at a song, Death Is on the End, where the first 2/3 of the song, there was no change in the vocal range at all. It was a real downer. It was rather monotone. And then Numb Love had a more power feel behind it, but the vocals do not change at all during the song, so these songs felt completely monotonous at this point, and I was not a fan of that. One of the reasons why this album disappointed me was because it had too much of this depressive feel to it, like Mayday Parade did. And when you have the more depressive feel to it, especially with the more monotony style of Telly's vocals, man, it just made me really not want to revisit some of these songs, because they just really kind of were downers. They really didn't have so much substance in there that really connected with you. Like Grace Almost and I'm Sorry You're Sorry Now. It just really had a more of a depressive, melodic feel to these songs, and it took away from a good amount of the energy. Plus, on this album, I thought it really didn't have any kind of bite whatsoever. There was no song on this album that had a bite that consistently makes me want to come back for more. And honestly, it was a huge genre that I couldn't get past. And the messages, again, on this album were there with what Telly was trying to talk about, but the emotion just didn't match up. But why is it coming at number 3 and doesn't go higher? Well, again, this album is rather monotonous. It's rather bland. I've seen it work out more that depressive tone with a band like Mayday Parade, but just that consistent style in Telly's vocals, man, it just really was a big downer on my part, and I just really couldn't get into it. It just had a monotonous, depressive feel, no energy, and you really couldn't connect with a lot of it on that front. There are some songs I liked, like Thank You, and the end specifically of The Death Is Only the End if you assume the story's about you. But overall, I'm not going to end up looking back at this album and forget that it was even there. Like, I kind of really found it forgettable and rather disappointing, so that's why it's at number 3. Coming number 2, I have the album Mother by In This Moment. It was supposed to come out in August or summer sometime of 2019, but it was delayed until March of 2020. Whenever I see an album that ends up getting delayed like this, I always have a concern about it. Like, you know, we're always going to be getting ready for something big because you want to make sure it's right, but I usually end up getting disappointed by it with that delay. Day to remember, you're on notice. But one of the biggest things I got before this album was from the fans after the release of Ritual in 2017, there was a concern where the instrumentation and the back instrumentals just were not nearly as diverse or dense or as vigorous as they once had been on previous releases, especially on the 2011 release Blood. And what the fans were saying was there was more of a focus on Maria Brink's vocals as the focal point throughout this whole entire thing. And that was something that I was getting as well. And when I saw them in concert in 2019 twice, once headlining with Seven Dust opening for them, and the other time opening for Disturbed, I got the same exact feel from their music at that point and from the production set that the sole focus was going to be on Maria Brink and what she was doing. So I was concerned that this was going to be what was going to happen on Mother, when it came out. So why was Mother disappointing? And what I was talking about with Ritual, it was even more prevalent on Mother, where you take a look at the instrumentals on this one, they're much more simplistic, they're much more drawn back, because they want to make sure that the sole focus is on Maria Brink's vocals. Do not get me wrong, Maria Brink is one of the most unique voices in rock and metal today, and it's incredibly powerful. However, when you focus solely in on it, then it's going to be the one thing that just stands out through the whole entire thing, and these songs are going to sound rather monotonous and rather bland. And in previous releases like Hunting Grounds and Big Bad Wolf, the dynamic style of instrumentation that's on those songs really does stand out. However, on songs like Legacy Mother and God Is She, where they just focus solely on Maria Brink's vocals and have minimal instrumentation just to amplify that, these songs just really made me think, why am I listening to these? These are kind of just the same, and it's all focused on Maria Brink's vocal setting. After the initial delay from 2019 to 2020, I was hoping that they were going to add a lot more substance to it, especially with a longer time frame. However, again, we got kind of the same stuff, we got the same traction that the band was going off of after Ritual, so I really thought that bland monotony feel, again, solely focusing on Maria Brink's vocal set, was not really worth it. But then there were some covers on this album, and I got words. In This Moment put 3 different covers on Mother, and oh boy, let's talk about them. The first is Fly Like an Eagle, cover from the Steve Miller Band song, and I just wasn't a big fan of it on the album track because it just really felt weird. It felt wrong just listening to it. However, when she performed it live, Maria Brink that is, in 2019, when I saw them open up for Disturbed, it did work out incredibly well as a live feature to open up the concert, so I think they got something there. And also there's a song Into Dust where it's not as bad because the band style really fits the cover. However, focusing on the little instrumentation and all of Maria Brink's vocals is just tiresome at the end of the album. And on its own, it could work out well, but no. Then we get to their cover of Queen's We Will Rock You, and this one should not have done anything on this one because the gothic style that they work with does not match up well with trying to play in contrast from the iconic Queen style. Plus, Maria's unique vocal style just really doesn't match up well with it at all in comparison to Freddie Mercury's vocal set. And man, it just really felt like this was just a bad idea. Credit to Lizzie Hale though on this one, because her feature on it made me think I kind of want to see if Hailstorm could cover this because they might have a shot with it. The Pretty Reckless, on the other hand, maybe not. But Hailstorm, yeah. But why is this at number 2, not number 1? There was one that came up before COVID-19 hit that I thought was really disappointing. COVID-19. I miss concerts. Damn you, COVID-19. Before I reveal my most disappointing album of the year, let's take a look at what you guys, the fans, thought. Neat. Okay, time for number 1. Coming number 1 for the most disappointing album of 2020, I have Father of All by Green Day. And before the album came out, Billy Joel Armstrong said that the band was trying to bring back the balls to punk rock with this album. So as a huge punk rock fan, I was super happy about this because I'm expecting, hey, this is going to bring back that same vigor and same style that American Idiot did. And while I'm waiting for a release from Rise Against at some point, and with Anti-Flag coming out with a 2020 Vision in January, and that album really having that anger and that raw punk feel to it, I'm like, man, if Green Day can really hit the nail on the head on this one, who am I going to be happy with that? And during NHL All-Star Weekend in 2020, man, that feels like a long time ago with live sports with a bunch of fans there. The band ended up playing a 2-song performance for the fans, and they ended up dropping the F-bomb a couple of times in there. And while some local media outlets kind of freaked out, I was super happy about this, especially with the fact that the NHL kind of just let it slide after agreeing to a 2-year deal with them to be, you know, in some music kind of, partnership with them. I was happy about this because I'm like, man, they really don't care. They really bring back the balls to punk rock. We might get something like American Idiot once again, not in the same sound, but in the same impact. And nope. So why is that most point of the year? No balls is the best way to describe it. When they said they're trying to bring back the balls to punk rock, I was expecting, man, that impact that American Idiot had where they didn't care. But then they end up talking about just the classic problems you go through in high school and all the social constructs around that. I'm like, yeah, I can eat your bread and butter, but don't say you're bringing back the balls to punk rock. And then you're talking about that kind of junk, that trivial stuff. Take a look at a song like Meet Me on the Roof, where you're talking about fear of getting a date. And then Sugar Youth, where you're talking about don't want to go to a party, but you want to get laid, so you're contemplating it. And then I Was a Teenager talking about going through puberty. I mean, if you're going to talk about bringing back the balls to punk rock, and then coming out with this bubblegum pop punk kind of stuff, man, get that out of here. I don't want to deal with any of that. I was disappointed this to all hell. And then there's the song Fatherball, the titular song. And it reminded me of Rebel Just for Kicks by Portugal the Man, but with a male vocal side. That just didn't work out well at all for Billy Joel Armstrong. It just was like, I get the experimentation there, but man, ooh, not good. And then the album had a huge spot of just blandness written all over it. And when you're talking about bringing back the balls to punk rock, you're just going to come up with something rather bland and just kind of, man, it just really ends up being disappointing. Take a look at I Was a Teenager. Again, you're talking about going through puberty. You could give a lot of substance there, but this song, very little substance over the course of 3 minutes. Take a look at Take the Money and Crawl. You have a potential to blast the system about people living paycheck to paycheck and bringing back the balls to that, but it was just so monotonous that it just really kind of had this bland feel to it overall. And then, oh yeah, again, the sound fits the theme of the album, but oh boy, the pop influence on this one really worked low. And in conclusion, why it's the most disappointing album of the year? You're saying you're bringing back the balls to punk rock, and a band of Green Day's caliber that has done that twice with Dookie, when giving a pop punk rock kind of birth in that way, and then American Idiot bringing back punk rock into the forefront. Man, you could have really done something here, but no balls. That's the best way to describe it. No balls. That's going to be for me today, guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Day number 4 of the Year in Awards is coming up next tomorrow. Worst songs of the year 2020. So get ready for that. Until next time, this is Kevin from the MSOTD Rocks YouTube channel. You know how I am with the hat flip. Right in the head. See ya!